You're listening to the Energy is Love podcast.
This is a off episode of the podcast. This is a one-off. Maybe that's what this whole episode's going to be.
Is that what we call it?
Yeah, it's going to be a one-off episode. When we sit down to record, we do the intros and things like that ahead of time, and then we do the episode and whatnot. And we just clusterfuck the majority of the time of our way through that. But today was extra special, and we forgot some things. And it's what day is it, babe?
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday?
It's Wednesday.
What time? Who knows? Where are we at?
Wednesday.
Great question. Sometimes you and I think we lean too much into the nonlinear aspect of life and time. And yeah, sometimes we're out there in the universe.
I only know it's
Floating
Wednesday
around.
because I know we record on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be Saturday,
We do record on Saturdays, but we only record like during the week.
right?
During the week. Yeah, it's rough. I think that Wednesday mornings have turned out to be challenging for us.
I know. I wonder why.
Yeah, it's like we did Wednesday evenings, and while we may even, I feel like it wasn't as challenging. Wednesday mornings, there's always like something going on. There's some
Right.
emotion. There's some.
It feels like emotion lately. The last
Yeah.
3 weeks, it feels like Wednesday mornings are the day for us to have breakdowns and fights and all sorts of different things.
Discoveries and what's going on in the world that we have to really take a pause for.
Yeah.
Like, excuse me.
So this is going to be a fun episode.
Yeah, it is.
We have lots planned.
Come join us.
We have next to no idea. Actually, we have an idea what we're going to talk
We
about.
have some tea. We have some coffee.
It's funny
We
too,
have
because we
some
had this idea of
incense.
recording at the beginning of the day.
Yes.
When we would be fresh,
Yes. right?
right?
Yeah.
Because in the evening, we're a little bit more
A
run
little
down and
scatterbrained.
tired.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of the day, we're fresh and we're just hopping on point.
It's ready to go.
I think that's applicable to every day except Wednesdays.
Except Wednesdays,
Yeah.
right? Wednesdays is,
It's a nightmare.
I don't know. It is. It is definitely challenging. We're also starting an hour later than we're supposed to, which is throwing us off.
Yeah.
Schedule is off.
Schedule is off.
Schedule is off. There's so much to do. How's your schedule? Are you listening right now driving and you're like, shit, wherever you are, schedule is off. The tank is not clean.
Yeah.
You get big yawn?
Oh, goodness.
Damn it.
So
I'm
thirds.
yawning too.
Thirds, yeah.
Okay. Going into thirds.
So I had this concept, an idea that came to me. It was an epiphany that came to me. And the whole idea is we get these, we used to think, I used to think that I was a conglomeration of just my parents. So I was just made up of my parents, 50-50. I was partially my dad and I was partially my mom. And depending upon my mood or the day, I would pick and choose how much I wanted to be of each of them. And I think that's true. I think that's the case. But then I think that so now I see it differently.
Yeah. How do you see it now?
Now I see it as thirds.
That's thirds.
So 33% comes from mom, 33% comes from dad, and 33% comes from society.
Okay.
So essentially that is what we are born with.
We're born with thirds.
So all of that takes place in utero
Okay.
before we even pop out. We're a conglomeration of 3 different things. You could call them the Holy Trinity,
Oh, goodness.
right?
Okay.
Mom, dad, society. Because our parents are shaped so significantly by society. Henceforth, their genetic makeup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their how they are experiencing life in society while we're in their body being made. All those different factors. So the idea is that it's the programs that are installed in our genetic makeup and in our brain come from those 3 different parts. And then we're born and we come out and we have all of those 3 different programs constantly kind of running us in a sense, subconsciously. And then eventually we start to butt up against those programs and start to question them and start to wonder, is this mine or is this theirs? Right?
Or is it society's?
Or is it society's?
Which, by the way, they each have their own Trinity. They each have their own, like, got from their mother, father society
right.
in them.
Right.
So does that...
First off, obviously I didn't do a great job explaining it, but
I started seeing it like, for the concept that we just heard about, like I started seeing that as like the fractal theory and how it would just like go out because here's 3 and then each of these is 3 and each of them, just kind of went, it like sprawled out, for all of it. It just sprawled out. But I was seeing like, where does that leave room for self-identifying? Is that what you were going to get to?
We're getting to.
So we're getting to? Okay. What percentage is that?
I have to adjust.
I'm excited for this topic.
Well, does it make sense, this idea of how I was explaining it?
It does. I have like, because my brain gets super literal at times. So I'm like, is it still a third if the father or the mother isn't present? And what is it if like they're like neither the father or the mother, if they're in another household? Like, how does that work? Does the other parent or whoever, like how many people may be involved in raising? Because you have like foster care who have like all of that. Does that equal society and they still get a third because of just the genetics, mother and father?
Yeah, the third that I'm talking about is all before you are born.
So in utero, before you were born, you've got...
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you get that programming.
You do. The epigenetics,
right. So the way that your mother, father thought, think, act, behave, the way that they are programmed is how they program you when you're made.
Okay. I was definitely spreading out too far. So we're just talking right now in utero.
Yeah. So before you're even born, this is what your makeup is. Your genetic and your brain and your energetic and this is how you are formed. And then you're born.
Yes.
Now we come out, and then it's a little bit more of like the Wild West because there are so many factors and variables, right? Some people
starting with the birth itself,
right? And we still may come out and just continue on those thirds where it's the mother and the father, but that's not a guarantee, right? Because of all those factors that you just kind of outlined to a certain extent. So there may be more involved in the rearing of the child and the makeup of the child.
2-parent households aren't always the same gender or aren't always male, female.
Right. So at some point we start to have awareness and we start to think about, is this me? And we don't have that process. Like, I don't think that thought process took place inside of me until, I don't even know, honestly, I might've been an adult, where it was like, is this actually my thought? Is this my quote unquote program? Is this my belief?
Yeah.
Because we're just so ingrained with them and we're so programmed with them that we think they're ours, but they're really not. They were given to us, right? Some of them are the in utero subconscious ones and the behaviors and actions and the things that we just function and move through. Mm-hmm. And then others are the ones that we get once we come out, and then we're absorbing what we see and what we're told and all that kind of different stuff. And it's the same thing where society plays a role in that. We get it from our parents, from our family, everything else. But then at some point, what is mine?
What is mine?
What is me? Who am I?
That's a fun one to try and
sort
out.
What have you done so far in regards to that?
What have I done so far?
Not like in a, tell me what you've done.
Yeah. Are you doing anything?
Yeah, no. Just how do you sort that out in your head today?
I have been sorting. I think I talked a little while ago and I didn't have this context of it, but it was just like the, I guess the society and the upbringing, like how much of my personality is trauma response personality and how like shitty that felt. And where I have got stuck on what is me is like, I know that like when you're coming through and you're peeling off all of these programs and all of these layers and all of these things that were given to you, like agreements that were made for you that you may have decided to continue agreeing to until you had more awareness. And now you're choosing to make agreements that are for you, not ones that were given to you. But my fear on that was what happens. Like I felt like every layer was somebody else. Every layer was something else. Every layer was an action or a result of an event. And I was like, where am I? Like I was afraid that once you start pulling off all these layers, when you got down to the core of me, there was nothing.
Oh, so you were only a conglomeration of your trauma.
Like I was that there was too many things that started too young. I started like from the get-go, you know? And so it really, I've honestly just had to just start trusting that I'm under there. And that once all these layers come off, it's not that there's nothing there and I no longer cease to exist. And my only existence is this, which is also a program that I've been given. Like I'm going to emerge from that and there is going to be me. But what that looks like yet, I don't know. I'm still peeling off the layers and trusting that I'm there somewhere.
That you're there somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you have some sort of
How about you? That was like, okay, I don't want to go. You just got really vulnerable. You want to ask me another question? Shit. Moving on, sir. Moving on.
It's really easy for me to just sit over here and ask the questions.
I know. You're really good at it.
So let's dive in a little bit deeper, Steph. So let's talk about this. Where is the Stephanie inside of you?
I told you. I already don't know that. They don't know. We don't need to go in there. Let's go. What question were you going to ask?
It was an easy question.
Are you sure? And I panicked. I'm like, no more.
No, it was just, do you have some, maybe not necessarily a clear idea or definition of what the you is inside of you or who Stephanie really is, but maybe from a higher perspective, do you have a sense of what she is?
So when you said it was an easy question, that was sarcasm.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah,
okay.
That's, and you don't have to answer the question.
Do I have, it depends on the day. There's days that I'm like, I know exactly, like I feel her as in me, like I'm connected and I feel like this calm and it's like this sureness, this confidence, this momentum, but in this calm way. I just feel peaceful and like there's times I'm like, I feel like I have that. And other times I feel like, whoa, I need help. I need to go to bed. And I don't. So it really depends on, it just depends on the day.
Yeah.
It depends on the day. I said a lot of it is still just, I guess, faith in the self, which is a hard word for me to say, that I'm under all of it because I keep getting glimpses of me. I keep seeing me. I keep meeting me. I keep getting to know me without the layers. And then I notice another layer and I think, oh, that's all I am.
Yeah.
So, okay. How about you?
Well, for me, as I start to pick apart this concept and I think about it as like these programs, what are some of these programs that I have that aren't mine and that I don't quote unquote believe in, but yet I still do.
Okay.
Because there's some things that I like. The one that comes to mind is I love being outside.
Yeah.
I love nature.
Okay.
I love the outdoors. We live by some beautiful mountains and I love being in those mountains.
Same.
I love hiking. I love all of this kind of outdoorsy stuff.
I escape to them when I have nowhere else to go. I'll take off in that direction every time.
Right. So that's a place that really calls to me. And it's not just in the mountains. Like literally I can go in our backyard and feel connected to nature. And I love that connection. That to me that feels like me. Mm-hmm. But the program is not doing that. So the program is lethargic. The program is watching television. The program is staying inside. The program is coming up with excuses as to why you can't go do those things. All these kind of different things that get in the way of me just living outside. And that one specifically, like that program, I really don't like because it doesn't feel like me at all. I feel much more like myself when I'm in nature, like physically outside in nature, feeling the sun, feeling the temperature, dirt. That feels like me. So the program that doesn't feel like me is the thing that is keeping me from going outside and being in nature.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, how do I, because there's also times where it's like, if that program is in place and running, I don't even think about nature sometimes. Like, I don't even think about being outside. I just get so caught up in living life in a way that is disconnected from nature that I forget about it. And then it's like, oh, I should go outside. Why? I have to go outside. Like, there's gnats. There's like, it's
Gnats
uncomfortable. It's hot.
get in the way of a nature for sure.
You know, you have to like drive to go to the mountain, like all these things that, why? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I don't do any of that stuff. 'Cause that
Right.
stuff sucks.
It's so hard to get
That's
through
the
that.
program.
That shield of
Right.
yourself.
But see, I don't look at it as a shield.
No, I mean like hiding from. It's like this program gets in the way of, like, this is where you are. It's like it's not a shield as in, oh, this is my protective shield. It's like shielding you from yourself, but not in a, like, a shield is like a positive thing. I don't
Yeah.
mean like in a positive thing. It's like a barrier. It's the barrier from yourself. That's what I mean.
But see, the program is me as well,
The
because
program
it's who
is
I'm
you.
made up of. It's just not.
Resistance. I feel resistance to that one.
It's just not the program that I want to continue to operate with.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how do I delete that program and install this new one?
See, I struggle with that, hearing that program is you. I don't see it that way. I don't see these programs as me. I see it as things that I chose to continue on to, but that were not me, that were never me, that was false, that led me like away from me. And so releasing them, even though like they're habits and traits that like I may have, I don't feel. Do you feel like you're being you when those programs are running?
Yeah.
You feel like you're being yourself.
I look at it from this, like, a different perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because I am the program and I'm not. Like, I
Okay.
am the program because it's how I was made.
Okay.
So it was literally like somebody is sitting there coding Craig
Okay.
and installs the lazy movie watching program.
Okay.
And then at the same time, like, my core of who I am wants to be outside, wants to be connected to nature, wants to be a part of what he is a part of always.
So do you feel like you're more programs, or do you feel like you're more core?
See? So then we come back to the, like, where is the self?
Yeah. I think
Can
the
you-
self is in the core.
Can you see around the program?
Sometimes.
Can you
Not
accept
always.
the program?
Can I accept? It depends on the day, and it depends on the program.
Right? There's
Can I
some that are really hard to accept.
There are, and there's some that I'm just like, no,
Right?
absolutely not.
But if we can accept the program and then make conscious choices to rewrite it and
Mm-hmm.
uninstall it, or better yet, just like, that's the whole thing, is like, we don't have to get rid of that program in order to
Are you saying
install
programs
a
are
new
parts?
program.
Is that what you're naming them? Because I'm with you with parts. We don't have to get rid of parts. We need to, but programming. Maybe I'm just seeing it differently, but I'm like, yes.
Maybe it's just semantics with the words.
Maybe.
Think about genetic makeup,
Okay.
like your DNA.
Okay.
That's
so
what
like,
I'm talking
so like
about.
my natural hair color.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I'm talking about. That's
Okay.
the type of programming that I'm talking about.
Okay. I'm thinking like behaviors and thought patterns.
Yes, but these behaviors and thought patterns are programmed into you. So they're not consciously chosen.
No,
It's
they're
not,
learned.
not just learned, programmed.
They are programmed.
Literally
Yeah,
written
'cause
into
they're-
your DNA.
There's traits that I have from a parent that has not raised me. And I don't mean like I didn't even know this parent until
Right.
I was 17. I didn't even like lay eyes on them
Yeah.
until I was 17. And
Yeah,
there's
so your
been
biological dad,
and I have so much of him.
right?
And I didn't know that. You know, I would get little tidbits where I was told that a little bit here and there, and that felt like, you know,
So see, that's
kinda
not learned
crud.
behavior.
That's not learned. And then now getting to know like him to where I've got to know him, I'm like, motherfucker. Like, yeah,
Programmed.
it's hard. Like, it's all these things that I'm like, how is it possible? So those, I see that. Okay. Yeah, it is strong, but I'm in resistance to those.
So that, to me, that this isn't a judgment. I'm going through the same internal thing with myself, right?
Sorry about my loud curse.
You're okay.
Hopefully I didn't trigger anybody.
But that's the same internal struggle that I'm having, is where, gosh dang it, I don't want these programs.
Right?
I don't want that quality or that trait. I don't want that subconscious action
Yeah.
or behavior. I don't want that thought process. I don't want the way that that coping mechanism manifests.
Right?
I don't want all of these things to exist. And the judgment is I should be stronger to change them.
Yeah.
I should
Yep, yep,
choose
yep.
better.
I'm
This
an
is my
adult.
weakness. This
I
is
can
my
do
fault.
this.
As opposed to just being like, oh, that's a program.
That is a program.
That's in my DNA.
And that's not even like their programs. That's program they were given.
Exactly.
And so on and so on and so on.
Exactly. So it's not
Viruses.
it has nothing to do with blame. It just has to do with awareness of like, oh, that's a program. So that's written into my code.
Yeah.
So then it's like, can I suddenly become capable of reading my own code
Yes.
and observing it and seeing it, right? Seeing the behavior and the action as a code or as a program, and no longer judging it as I'm a piece of shit, or I'm ashamed, or I'm weak, or I should know better or do better, all these kind of different things. It's just program. Now consciously choosing to reprogram it. So if we take the program itself and break it down to like the basic zeros and ones, I'm not getting rid of zeros and ones. I'm just
Rearranging
reorganizing
them.
those zeros and ones
Yeah.
to make a new and different program.
I feel like that's okay. I'm following you, and I feel like I feel like we are both on that mission and are doing that. I can sit here and think of a ton of programs of yours and of mine that
Right?
the program's still there.
Like
It's
when the
still
app on
there.
your phone gets updated, you don't delete the old app and install a new one.
Yeah.
You just update the app.
Also, you get to delete the app on your phone. So you don't exactly get a delete
Sometimes.
from you. So yeah, I can think of like some really strong ones right now where the program is still there, but the way that there's another program in place. There's another program in place. So that's still there, but I'm not doing it that way anymore. I'm doing it on like I've uploaded this drive or whatever. So I'm working with this software now as opposed to the DOS system. You know, I'm like,
Yeah.
so I can see that.
Yeah.
But it's still there and it's easy. Like it's a process. Like you have to like have awareness of self. And even with awareness of self, you can still slide back into old programmings.
Yes. So it's the integration, being able to integrate those programs. Once again, it's not like taking the old computer and sticking it in the closet and never looking at it,
Yeah.
but figuring out how to integrate it into the new system.
You know, there's a lot of things that I wish you could just do that with, though.
Get rid
I
of?
really do.
I do
I
too.
really do. Like to sit here and be like, oh, I'm just at peace with everything. And like, no, I am like, there's things that come up that I'm like, are you kidding me? How can I seriously be dealing with this again? Or just having it in the backspace. And it's really hard sometimes to give yourself full awareness because you punish yourself. It's like you keep seeing yourself there. Remember how we've talked about old me, new me?
Yeah.
So when you have these thought patterns, even though you're not thought actions or you're not action oriented with it, you're not carrying out these programs, but just recognizing that the programs are still there, it's really hard to give yourself credit and awareness and see, I'm not doing these actions. This thought is still there, but I'm doing these actions now. It's really hard to see that and love yourself and see where you're at instead of like criticizing yourself and still judging yourself because you still have these thoughts. Like, I'm not behaving this way. I'm not behaving this way, but because it even just goes poink in
But
my
the thoughts
brain,
are still there.
that says that I have not healed past it. I'm not making better choices. In reality, you're making all the better choices. You're not doing any of the things, but you're like, oh, I still can't. Here I am. And you
So,
won't allow yourself to go past it.
What if oh God, here I am again still?
Yeah.
What if that's a program?
Yeah. What if that's a program in
So
itself?
you're still thinking that that's your thought.
And that itself is a program?
Yeah.
Okay, walk me through that one.
So the whole idea of, you can see the awareness of like, okay, I have this thought process and I'm not doing the behavior anymore. But then every now and then it pops back up again, but I can resist it and I'm not doing it. I'm not thinking it, or I'm not, the coping mechanism or the action, right? So that change starts to take place, but you still have the thought process and the shame associated with it when it comes up.
Okay.
So the part of it that is beating yourself up or being negative about yourself in a sense, right, is the program. So
it's a separate program.
Yeah, it's a separate program.
The shame program.
Yes.
The shame program.
The one that is not given, like, it's not you.
Yeah.
Right? It's given to you. Because the shame program keeps you what?
Stuck.
In this box, right?
Yeah.
It keeps you in this small space where it won't allow you to grow.
Yeah.
And it won't even allow you to believe. So as soon as you start to believe that maybe you're changing and healing,
it'll throw this thing at you.
A negative thought will come in, and then the program.
And I'll be like, look,
cool.
See?
Now you judge yourself and you're like, fuck, I thought I had healed this, or I thought I'm better than this, or why is this thought here? And then you get caught back up into the loop, which then keeps you in the box. So it's just a program that's installed.
Yeah.
Once again, that's not yours.
Yeah.
Right?
I liked what you were saying before. I don't know if you weren't saying it on the podcast. We were talking about there's just the cycles of life when things keep coming up. Like it's the cycle itself, as opposed to like still how you're doing it is different. Your cycles are different, but the cycles themselves keep coming up.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how. I definitely experience. I can still definitely get into shame for some things.
Well, let's pick
Actually,
apart.
I don't think it's shame. I think what I get into is fear.
Okay.
It's more like, no, let's not just pick apart me. Let's pick apart you too, mister.
I wasn't going to say you. Let's pick apart the fear programming for both of us.
Yeah.
So
Because is it shame for you mostly? Or it can be, right? But how much more of it is fear? Like, oh, not this.
Fear and shame feel very different to me.
Yeah. That's why I'm asking you.
So shame is a base, like shame is a base operating system for me. A lot of stuff grows and stems and is written in and around shame. So it's kind of like, if a coder was going to look at my code, they'd be like, oh, this is a shame code, because it would be in everything.
Yeah.
Right. You would be able to see the remnants of shame in all the coding.
Yeah.
And I would say probably the same for you with fear.
I was going to say, fear's mine. I definitely have shame. And I'm not like over here like, oh, no, I only deal with fear. I don't have to deal with shame.
It's so sad. Sorry.
I'm just
Sorry.
like
Sucks to
really
be you.
scared. That's all I am.
So then you have a base coding that influences all other codes.
Fear
and
is
all other programs,
definitely my base code.
right?
Yeah.
So who do you think that came from if we're looking at it from the thirds? You don't have to go into it.
Okay. I got it.
Okay. So you know who it came from if
Yes.
you're looking at mother, father, or society. And even though they all influence it, right? But there's going to be one that influences it more.
Yes.
So then you can take...
What about yours? Can you see which one yours came from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Goodness. Mine came from my mom.
Yeah.
And when I think about fear, I think that came from my dad.
Yeah.
So if I had more of my dad's programming, then maybe fear would be my base coding. And, but I think shame came from my mom.
Yeah.
So then it's almost like, it's like the lens that everything looks through. So it's almost even the coder itself, the person that's writing the program is wearing shame filters. So everywhere it looks for shame, for recognition, and then codes from that point. So I can see a lot of shame correlation with society.
Yeah.
So I can see a lot of the ways that this is really interesting as we start to pick this apart. Like if I look through my programs and I look at the programs that society gave me, a lot of them are going to be shame-based.
Yeah.
And I think same thing. If you look at society, a lot of yours
I
are
like
going to be
it's fear.
fear-based,
What
right?
just happened this morning?
Right?
Like I am in fear
right
now. And I'm seeing society like fear-based. So it's very much fear.
Yeah. So then it's like suddenly we think, well, society gave me all this program around fear. Yeah.
Sorry, is this pretty?
You're okay.
Okay.
So yeah, we have that coding, and that's what people like. That's what we look for because it's pattern recognition.
Mm-hmm.
So then everything becomes shame-based for me, and everything becomes fear-based for you. So then how do we shift out of those programs?
Do the work.
Yeah. What is the work?
Being willing to look. How do you start?
Yeah. Like, what do you do when you really confront fear? When you find yourself in fear, what do you do? First off, what's your program tell you?
What's my program tell me? My program is avoid it. Like recognize fear, recognize threats, have all the plans to avoid it, when it happens, like what I'm going to do in that situation, how I'm going to get through it, how I'm going to survive, how to avoid it completely. My programs are just avoid, retreat, seclude, hide. My program is hide. How to like to get through that.
Okay. So then what does higher perspective, like true self Stephanie do when she is confronted by fear?
You know, I don't know if I've, like when I'm actually in it, there's things I do. Like just little, oh my goodness, come on. I want these words to come out. There's something that happens. There's like a shift that when I'm confronted with, when I'm overwhelmed with fear and it's just too much and it's too much. And here, there's a shift of to where I just stop participating and I do something different. I stop participating and I stand up and walk towards it. I stop participating. In the fear, I stop hiding and I just look at it and I move towards it. Sometimes this is an unconscious thing that just happens. And then later I'm like, I just did it. And then other times it's like, it takes everything and I'm like pulling myself up and it feels like you're literally holding your bones together sometimes when you stand up. And that has come from like, there's high roads and low roads with this. There's healthy ways that I'm doing this and there's really unhealthy ways that I've done it, but it was what I had at the time. It's what I had access to at the time. So even in the unhealthy ways that I used to do that and confront the fear, I was finding a way to confront the fear. And now with the more tools and being willing to go inside and look at yourself and peel back the layers that we were saying, like one at a time, and looking at responses and really getting honest with what life is, like what your experiences have been, with what your wants are, with who you are, with what your drive is, and with like people around you, just really like getting out of the not looking at and oblivion and I'm just gonna, keep things this way or keep my head down. Just like when you actually just stop and be aware. It's awareness is the best way I can describe it. And really sitting. Like that has been the hardest thing. I just keep going back to that. Like I had to stop looking away and I still struggle with looking away. But when you stop looking away, and that doesn't mean like focusing on it and now you're wallowing in it and it takes you over, which sometimes that's exactly what happens. And that's exactly what has to happen. So you go through it and then you can stand up, as opposed to when you're just avoid it, think you're never going to have to deal with it. So sitting in emotions and your emotions and having somebody sit with you through your emotions and understand your emotions, not make you wrong for having emotions. All of those steps have allowed me to stand up consciously and with intention and look at fear and look at the things and still move forward and still go. And I wish I did it every single time, but I don't. I'm a work in progress. We're all work in progress. And I like it when it just naturally happens and I don't have to put forth all that effort and hold my bones together. But usually.
How does it feel expressing all of that right now?
I just have like awareness of it. I don't think I haven't had to sit there and like break it down like that and be like, this is my step. This is kind of like my journey of how I've done that.
Yeah.
Like there's always so much awareness. There's so much, and that can get overwhelming too, because you like have like this you're looking at, now this you're looking at, and this. But so much happens, and just being able to sit here and express all that is the first time that I think I've really got to look at it in that way. And so I'm like, oh, like I got to feel I got to feel some pride there and be like, wow, look at what you've done. Good job. And then it's like this calmness of, whew, it gives you like strength to keep going. So that's kind of what I'm feeling right now. Just like, good job, Steph.
Yes.
And what else? Like now we can keep going. We can keep going.
Great job.
Head above water. It's like your head breaks through and you're like, I got a breath. Okay, here we go. Here we go. I haven't had awareness. Thank you.
I think that's exactly how you start to reprogram things.
Yeah.
Is you have to look at it.
It's so hard to look at.
It's very hard. I've done the same thing with my shame.
Tell me.
Where it's like, not, my, the program, I just cannot get rid of that tickle in my throat. The program for shame, first and foremost, it like the default mode is don't even know what you're talking about. So it's not even disassociation. It's it's like complete ignorance.
Yeah.
How do I describe it? Ignorance isn't even the right word, because ignorance like symbolizes some sense of like naivety, where you don't even, you're ignorant to the things that you're just unaware of. But it's complete avoidance of shame.
Like refusal?
Yeah, like refusal to even acknowledge it.
Yeah.
So it's like somebody points out, hey, it looks like you have a stain on your shirt. Did you spill some coffee on your shirt?
Yes.
And instead of like looking at my shirt and being like, oh my gosh, how did that get there? I did. I'd be like, looks like you've got some holes in your shirt. Where'd those holes come from? Let's start talking about what's going on with your shirt, to the point where suddenly all of that shame around a stain on my shirt has just been flipped. And now I get to highlight everything that's wrong with the other person, or with society, or with anything else besides the stain on my shirt. And then I'll go home and I'll take that shirt off and I'll look at it and I'll think, fuck, you're an idiot. How did you spill that? Like, I can't believe you moved through the entire day with ketchup on your shirt. God, you're so stupid and worthless. And then I'll hide that shirt in the dirty clothes. And every time that shirt comes out and the stain wasn't able to be washed away and it was just faint and barely there, I would beat myself up again over it, to the point where I would either never wear that shirt again and bury it somewhere in the closet so that it disappears, or like throw it away and pretend like it never existed. And then the next time somebody's like, haha, you spilled on your shirt, motherfucker, right? Just respond with so much anger. So that's my program for shame, like the default way that it's handled.
Yeah.
Right? Projection outwards, and then internalize it in private and let it destroy you inside. Okay? So now, how do I do it? I still do that sometimes, unfortunately.
Right.
And that, I don't like that I do that. That's really hard. And it still happens, though. It still happens where I will project it outwards and then internalize it. Like if I'm going to project outwards to somebody, I might, like if this metaphor of the stain, which I really like, actually, it kind of worked. But I might make them feel bad to the 10th degree about the stain on their shirt. And then when I go home and internalize it, it's to the 100th degree, right? I always make it way worse when it goes through the internalizing of the shame for myself than I would for anybody else. So I might look at somebody and I might judge their actions or behaviors or something that they've done, and I might even judge them really harshly. But as soon as I turn that around, and the process of turning it around and internalizing the shame and the guilt and everything else inside of myself sometimes never happens. But when it does happen, it's intense, and it's way more. And like I said, it's like 10 to 100th. It's quite a bit more internalized shame directed inward. So that was, I don't like the way all of this feels.
Yeah.
Because that hurts. Like, I recognize that I've done that my whole life. You know, that's why that's why I have a history of self-harm and things like that. That's just the coping mechanism and the manifestation of that internalized shame. And like, it sucks that all of that just got bottled inside and internalized in such a destructive way. But now I look at it and like you were saying, it's like no longer hiding from it or avoiding it or projecting it outwards, and no longer burying it and internalizing it inwards, and instead just sit with it. Look at it. Look at my shame. Or look at the shame. I don't even like to think of it as my shame.
It's not yours. You don't have to own it.
You know, it's a lifetime of survival and coping mechanisms and pain and suffering that was a program that was given to me. So I just look at it and I feel it. And I feel my way through the shame of it. And then, like, it gets intense as I'm trying to feel my way through it. And then I get to the other side of it. And then I can just have compassion for myself.
Yeah.
And understanding that it's not as bad as I think it is. It doesn't make me a terrible person. It's not something that I have to hide or bury or ignore or deflect or project. It just simply was a feeling and an emotion or an action and a behavior, and I can feel my way through it and then have compassion for myself at the end of that process and love myself through it.
Yeah.
And then when it comes up again, do the same thing. Comes up again, do the same thing. And the idea that it's going to stop or end is the part that I'm at now, where it's like, oh, that's just always going to happen. Like, I think of it the same way, where it's like I'm going to stand at the ocean and be like, waves, we're done. No more waves. Wait a minute, hold on. Maybe you guys didn't hear me. And then I'd like move out into the ocean a little bit more so that they can actually hear me. And then I start yelling even louder. I'm like, I told you, we're done with waves. No more, stop. And then the tide rolls away, right? You know, and I'm like, oh, I did it. 2 seconds later, it comes back again. What the fuck? I said no. That's my idea of how foolish are we to think that these cycles and these patterns and this like constant flow of energy that exists inside of us that just flows, that we're going to stop that, or that we would even want that to stop.
That's where I was just going. It's like, would you even want that?
Right?
I don't want to stop the wave.
I don't want to stop the shame. I don't like feeling it. But if suddenly, imagine if we stopped all emotion.
Yeah, right.
And imagine if we stopped all negative emotion. And we're only left with positive emotion. Then what? After about 6 months of positive emotion, it wouldn't feel so positive anymore. And we'd become numb to it because we don't have anything to counter it.
You have the context.
We don't have the context or the contrast to it.
Yeah.
So you can't stop shame or fear or hurt or sadness or pain or anger or rage or any of these things, grief. You can't stop any of those unless you're willing to stop joy and happiness and love and all the positive things as well. Yeah. And truthfully, you can't stop any of it. Just like you can't stand in the ocean
and stop the waves.
Yeah. Right? You can pretend that you can, or you can tell yourself that you can, but at the end of the day, I think that's just avoidance.
Yeah.
And frustration. So instead, just feel it. Feel your way through it.
Feel it.
And like you said, help.
Help.
So massively important. I needed help.
I
needed help to connect to all of that shame. And I needed people to sit with me as I felt it. And as I started to let it come out. Because it was buried. Oh my God, was it buried?
Yeah.
And it just came out in rage. And luckily I had people that were willing to sit with me.
Yeah.
And literally all they had to do was like sit. They They didn't have to do anything other than be present with me while I felt that stuff. That was all.
Yeah.
And just sit in love and compassion. And that made all the difference.
Right.
I feel silly now.
Oh.
It's okay.
It's hard to say all that stuff.
Well, it's hard because now I feel like I got a stain on my shirt. And I'm like,
I have a couple of things that came
project outwards.
I
Stephanie,
know,
you spilled
I
your
know.
shirt stain.
I was gonna say, okay, that's one of the things. I wasn't gonna hit that one, but do you feel like when you look at it, and at the like when you're turning it in and you're looking at it, does it hurt less when you do it from the get-go, as opposed to when you've projected, and then you finally have to let.
Yeah, if I can do it from the beginning,
It's not magnified.
yeah, it's not as intense. If I've been caught in that shame program for a week or something, then it's like, fuck, it's so much harder to sit, like it's so much harder to pull myself out of it, to be able to sit with it and observe it and feel it and recognize it, as opposed to be like, oh, here I am going into it. No, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to feel it and go through it. It's way easier. Do you feel the same about the fear?
Yeah. When I don't let it build and build and build. And when I don't, when I stop myself from loving in the same way as I love and fear, like there's like, and to watch that, because that will bring shame.
You love and fear?
Well, think about, okay, so if your programming is shame, and that's the way you're moving through life, that's why your acceptance of yourself.
It filters everything.
It filters everything, including the way that you're loving. So how do you feel like you love in shame? I'll go first. So I have been working really hard on, and it is not something that I do subconsciously. It is a conscious choice every time to love through empowerment and through, I guess, allowing the other person their anonymity. They would be themselves, not aware, but just like themselves, and not love and fear. And by that, I mean, don't climb that tree. You're going to get hurt. Don't do this. You're going to get hurt. You don't want to do that. Like, stay over here. This will hurt. This will hurt. And then trying to bring fear to keep your children away from something that's going to hurt them. Now, obviously, you're not going to sit there and watch them. Yeah, go ahead, touch that stove, see what happens. You're not going to do that. But I would take it to I was given that programming, and so that's the way that I was loving, is like, this can harm you. You don't want to do this. You don't want to be harmed. Like encouraging the 15-year-old who's learning how to drive a stick to cross 4 lanes of traffic going against on an incline in a stick. Cause I'm like, you're going to want to go right, and then stop and just like, okay, like, I'm not going to put that fear. Like, you think you see that left turn, take it, so just not trying to make them afraid, and for the same fears that you have, trying to keep them safe because you love them and you want to keep them safe.
Yeah. I can see how I've done that with shame.
Yeah.
Where it's like, don't do that, or you're going to be ashamed. Right?
Or even like micro shaming behind doors, so it's not the public shaming.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that one's
It's a tricky one.
It is tricky. It's very accurate though. Right? The idea that I've loved with that program of shame. So even love itself has a base program, and if shame is my base program, then that means that, quote unquote, my love program is going to be written with shame code.
I see another angle, if you want.
Yeah, please. Hopefully it's a positive one.
It's the extremes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the shame that you're avoiding with the projection of, no, this is you. Look at you. Like, I'm fine over here. Look at you. So I feel like the way, I don't know how to say this without.
Just lay it on me, baby.
does it feel more accurate to think of the ways that is the way that you have loved is like, you are perfect. It's everybody else's fault. You don't have to look at this. You're not doing anything wrong. They're bad. You're perfect. They're bad. Everybody's bad. They're doing this. This is them. This is them. This is not. But not in a healthy way of like, oh, this had nothing to do with you. Of like, you can do no wrong. There's nothing wrong with you. You get to do all of these things. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your actions. There's no accountability for your actions. It's the world that needs to change.
Are you talking about me feeling that way about myself or loving that way?
So it's kind of both.
Yeah.
Kind of both. So there's
which way were you highlighting though?
Well, we're talking about the way that we teach love.
The way that we teach love.
The way that we teach love. The way that we're loving. So your loving way was, you don't have to be like, there is no, like you did, like if somebody does something that's kind of really shitty, and instead of being like, okay, we need to look at this. Let's sit with this. Not that you're bad and you did this and now you get to have all of these things. Not that, but it's like, oh, none of this is your fault. None of this is your fault. You didn't do anything wrong.
You don't have to take accountability.
There's zero accountability. It doesn't matter if you just went up and like destroyed this person. What did they do? Mm-hmm. And it's up to them. It's not up to you if their feelings are hurt. It's up to them that they let their feelings get hurt by you. You have done nothing wrong. So it's like breeding that kind of energy. Mm-hmm. And then I'm behind you going like, don't do that. It'll hurt. It'll get scared. Stay away from there. It's your job to make sure everybody feels okay and safe. And you just like your life, you're supposed to love. And like, don't do that. Stay over here. And you're like, nothing is ever your fault. And it is always somebody else's. And it's up to them to figure out their shit. And you are, look at you. You just walk on water.
Yeah. Yeah. Guilty, Your Honor.
I'm not accusing you. Am I coming off accusing?
Not at all, Steph.
I thought we were like, okay, we're looking at stuff.
I'm trying to, we're totally looking at stuff. I'm just trying to joke because it's uncomfortable.
Oh, I do that.
Yeah.
I do that. Should we joke now?
No, I don't want to joke too much because it's serious. It is. That concept of like, it's really easy to see how, like it's easy for me to acknowledge how shame has manifested in my life and how I've avoided it. The harder part is how my love has been influenced by shame.
Yeah.
Right. And then, I mean, the concept of self-love is so foreign to me that, you know, that is 100% shame. Like, it's like I can't even begin to imagine what self-love looks like in a healthy way because it is shame. Self-love is shame. Like I can't.
Self-love is shame.
There isn't. Do you know what I mean? Like
No.
there's no ability to love myself because shame is in the way.
Okay.
So I can't even get to quote unquote self-love because shame is in the way. So you can't even begin the process of like, well, I can't even start self-love. Like I understand the concept for other people, but it's very abstract. It's very obscure. And, well, how do you even begin that for yourself? As soon as I can see past the shame, then I will be able to begin that process for myself, but that's not really going to happen. So it's not a concept or an idea. That's the program. So that's the base, right? But now I can see how it's the same thing of being able to feel my way through the shame and being able to move through it and feel it and acknowledge it. And this is another part that you've just highlighted for me is how I've loved with shame. And
also with the best intentions. Like look at it. Like look at it objectively. So while I am loving, like having to say I've loved in fear and try to make kids afraid of things, like that's horrible. I feel like the worst person in the world.
yeah,
The worst. But I can also, from this place I'm at now, making conscious choices where I'm not doing that, I can see I'm making better choices. I'm empowering them. I'm just listening and encouraging what their dreams, encouraging actions, encouraging choices, even if something in the back of my head's like,
Yeah.
But I can see my goal was keeping them alive and trying to teach them how to keep themselves alive when I wasn't around to do it. Your goal was eliminating shame from them. This demon, this thing that is weighing you down. And you're like, I love you so much. I don't want you to have to deal with that. I'm just going to highlight, like, it was coming. Like, yeah, there's like skewed perspectives or whatever. And there's the low road of it. But you were loving like the best of your ability.
Yeah, I mean,
and I was loving
it's
the
our program
best
of
of
love.
my ability. And now we see it. We're looking at it and we're choosing to love differently.
Yeah.
Loving complete. It's like we're able to love more fully now.
Yeah.
Because we're seeing the person and allowing the person to be the person. And we just get to support and love as opposed to trying to control and drive through the best of intentions.
Yeah, so it feels like unconditional love.
It feels more like unconditional love now.
Right. So then it's like, what is unconditional love? And then it's like, that's what we are. Yeah. So then we back to where's the Stephanie? Who's the Stephanie? What is the Stephanie inside of you? I feel like that is just unconditional love.
What about the Craig?
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I feel like that's we all come from, stem from, everything, right? It's just that unconditional acceptance of who you are as an individual, regardless of anything, like literally anything. It doesn't matter what.
Do you get glimpses of self-love?
For myself?
For yourself, like glimpses.
That was funny. Do you get glimpses of self-love? Hold on. For myself?
Yeah.
Hold on. Define self-love. You mean for me?
Do you get glimpses?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Can you think of one right now? Can you try and drop into one?
Yeah, I mean, they're happening more frequently.
Okay.
They're it's more the regular. It's not to say it's like it hasn't crossed over to where it's, but yeah, it's more the regular.
Can you
I'm experiencing those things more now.
Can you just sit in a glimpse? Not trying to explain it, not trying to expand upon it, not thinking about it, just sit and be with a glimpse.
Mm-hmm. It's uncomfortable. And it's funny because shame wants to poke its head, and it's like shame wants to open up the door and be like, I'm here.
So like, we'll talk to you later. Like right now, take a seat back.
Feels like you're trying to do some self-love. Let me come in and
Yeah.
help. Oh, we love in here? I got to come in and help.
Right.
But yeah, I can feel it.
You don't even have to just sit. Maybe you can like set some reminders for that, or every time you see sequential numbers, whether sequential or repetitive numbers on the clock, because I know you're getting like the 222s or the 123s. Whenever you see one of those, that's a reminder just to sit in a moment of where you caught a glimpse. Just to sit in a moment, a glimpse, and just feel that love. Only has to be for a moment.
That's a good reminder, babe. I'm going to try that. Let that be a trigger for me when it happens. This journey is so hard.
Yeah, it is.
It's so much easier sometimes to not do stuff.
It feels like that, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I wonder if it is, or if it's just
I think it is sometimes.
yeah.
Like not doing things is sometimes easier than doing things.
I can relate. I was expressing that to you very clearly the other day. I was like, I'm tired of trying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I sure like doing stuff too.
Yeah.
And I sure like the way life feels. You know,
Yeah.
what's sad, and it's not sad, but the reality is you and I don't have to think that much further back in our life to get to a point where things were chaos.
Yeah.
And it's not just like trying to remember what it felt like to go through traumatic experiences as a child, or I know good and goddamn well what chaos feels like.
Yeah.
It wasn't long
Yeah.
ago.
And then we can even break it down further and like take that time chunk where we can look back and then timestamp it there and apply that again. And just see like it's always been a growth. And it was still chaotic. Like I can get swallowed up and be like, it hasn't been that long ago. But even that was an improvement from the same time jump back, linearly speaking.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like everything has been, like this has been a journey.
Yeah.
And it went from clusterfucking our way through it with me, myself, and I, and you, yourself, and you, to, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's get some help.
Yeah.
Let's allow not just like helping, but allow loving. So when you're looking back and seeing like not that long ago chaos.
Yeah, it was different.
Yeah.
Than, the previous 7 years or whatever. But it's still, it just hurts. It sucks.
Yeah.
Tension and anxiety and fear and chaos and living in it. I feel like in my 20s, I was unaware.
Yeah.
And then maybe, mid-20s, mid to late 20s, I start to become aware of, quote unquote, the chaos that I was living in. And really it was all internal. Because that's the other thing too, is it's not to say I haven't had, of course it's not to say I haven't had terrible living environments that were chaos and traumatic. I very much have. But the internal chaos, the internal storm and the feeling inside is one that's what I'm talking about. That feeling inside
Yeah.
is the thing that I'm referencing, where that just feels like pure chaos.
Yeah.
What's going on inside of my body, inside of my head, inside of my thoughts, my heart, my emotions, all of that. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Like that hurts so bad. The internal struggle of pain and suffering. It just hurts. It hurts every day, every moment. Like there's not a moment where it doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
When it doesn't hurt is when you're completely disassociated and disconnected from it. But even in those moments,
It still hurts.
it still hurts because you know that you're disconnected from it.
Yeah.
Like I remember times of being like super drunk or something and just being miserable in life. And even though I might have been feeling quote unquote good in the moment, I still had the thought of, this is fucked up. You're fucked up. Do you know what I mean? The pain and the suffering and the chaos is still there. That's going away. Like I know now what it feels like to not live with that constant pain inside. I have more and more and more moments of freedom from that internal chaos. And externally, our life is great. We have a lot of joy and happiness and amazing things in our life. And it's safe. And now it is just healing the internal so that it matches the external. And that's what we're talking about, these internal programs. And the idea that there's a way to shift them so that you don't have to feel that chaos all the time. Because that's what it feels like to me. It just feels like chaos. You know? I like it. That's why it's worth it.
Yeah.
There's definitely days where it doesn't feel worth it. Or I'm too tired or too exhausted or too lost in the chaos of it. But for the most part, it feels worth it. Because on the other side of it is like this freedom where you don't have to feel that chaos all the time. So that's a big act of self-love.
Yeah.
Stephanie, say something now.
I think we
Can we wrap up
I
on
think
that?
we wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up, folks. Man, this podcast, I tell you what. 6 years. I was going to look and see.
Yeah.
It's definitely by now because,
Is it?
yeah, I can't remember the date. I know I had it down somewhere at some point. It's just the first episode of the podcast ever came out in May of 2016. And that date and time is...
The 15th or the 20th?
Almost there. It's the 25th.
25th.
The 25th. So this might be that episode.
Maybe.
Yeah, this might not. Maybe it's the exact date that this episode comes out.
How cool would that be?
It won't be. It's close though.
It's close.
Yeah, it's close. 6 frickin' years. I'm excited. But it keeps growing.
Yeah.
Keeps changing and evolving. I'm grateful for that. Okay, you said let's wrap. I'm
Yeah.
rambling. Let's wrap. Thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful, wonderful day, and we'll see you next week or next time on